Hey friends, so let's see, what are we doing today? We're just winging it today. But what I wanted to do instead was just like talk about things. Ooh, it's cold in here. I'm gonna have to turn my heat on. So, it's a cold, cold day in the studio. I don't know that we've hit above 40 yet. I'm gonna pause here and find some electrical supply for my heater, and I'll be back. I can't run the heater and the lights at the same time with the cable I got, so I got to solve that problem. It is too cold to work. Hi friends, I'm coming to you from my very cold studio. I'm having to run my heater just to be able to stomach being in here. I have a couple of things I'm trying to knock out. What I can try and do is I've got a very low-hanging fruit reproduction piece that I think I can work on. There's no really fancy beads, and I can get this piece done. And I need to make lots of wasp beads. I'm just looking at my reference image. These basic beads I'm making for this Anglo-Saxon piece. It's a good candidate for the day. Anyways, we'll see. Well, let me tell you a little bit about myself to get to a point I want to make. So I'm just going to talk today. I'm not doing lessons in beads. So I have always been interested, even as a little kid, in middle and elementary school with like the Middle Ages. I used to play D&D, first with my brother, then with some of the neighborhood kids. We used to do sword fights. As I got older, I became interested in Warhammer, fantasy Warhammer particularly. And when I got into high school, I became a member of a history reenactment group. And then started reading things like Lord of the Rings and the Chronicles of Narnia, all of which have just kind of informed who I am as a medievalist. And the reality is that everybody's interpretation of history is informed by their fantasies, the romantic images that they hold. And not only does it impact our interpretation of history, but it impacts the interpretation of histories that we use to interpret history. Like, you really cannot understand the depth and breadth of historical study without also looking at the historiography of an idea. So, like, how did our current understanding of the Romans or the Crusades or the Vikings evolved? Why do we choose the words that we choose to describe them? What politics was at play at the time those choices were being made? How has popular culture impacted our interpretations? I've been to reenactments where I was sharing my art, and the people at the that's not really a reenactment, it was a convention, like more fantasy version of Vikings convention. And people were like, it didn't really look this colorful. I'm like, well, it did. I can show you the evidence. But that's because, you know, their interpretation is inspired by, informed by their history that they have gotten from TV shows. Which in turn, I mean, you could look at and study the interpretations that we have in something like the Vikings that's informed by the interpretation of movies, which is informed by the interpretation of stagecraft, which is informed by, ideas from the church, but it's also informed by the fact that it's stagecraft, and it's got to be seen and understood from people on the other side of the theater. And so lends itself to big, audacious garb, regardless of whether or not that garb was a thing. Like, and then the next guy who comes along, they're like, well, this outfit's already been made for this production. I'm just gonna recycle it for my production. Or if I use this existing idea of what a Viking is, I don't have to explain that these are Vikings. The audience will immediately know. All that stuff is in our psyche, whether we want it there or not. So that brings me to like, how did I become more interested in the like accuracy of what I'm doing? And you know, it really started with I became a school teacher, and I was wanting to use my reenactment kit to help kids understand the history that we were talking about. And I was also in school to get a specialist degree in social science education, and much of my schooling was taking classes within the museum studies branch of the history department, which had a really strong focus on how do you interpret history for other people who aren't historians, who aren't sociologists, who are not at the end stage of academia. And that kind of got me to realize that what I was doing as a reenactor was historical interpretation, and I wanted to get it right. At the time, I was doing just generic medieval person as my persona, and I decided I should really pick a persona, and I should try and represent that person. And so I did a crusader, and I started with the First Crusades. But the more I studied, the more I'm like, I just don't like this person. Like, I learned a lot about the First Crusades, and I was using my character to interpret the First Crusades, but I didn't like my character. My character wasn't somebody I wanted to be. And so, in order to understand the First Crusades, I had endeavored to understand the things that followed it. And so, I ended up developing a character who was a descendant of the First Crusaders who had decided to stay behind in Jerusalem and had grown up in the Middle East as a European and had a more broad understanding of the medieval culture of the Middle East. And I kind of tried to use that character as a way to teach about like how you could have cooperation amongst different cultures, and also what can break that cooperation down, because that time of peace between the Second and Third Crusade, it didn't last. What made it not last? I chose to present this history of the Crusades in a more liberal-minded way because it matched how I felt about the world and what I valued about the world. We all make choices in our lives about the things we do, and it's oftentimes inspired by how we view the world. There are a lot of people that view the Crusades, the Middle Ages, and Norse culture through a lens of white nationalism, a lens of fascism, a lens of Christian nationalism. That's reality. If you do Roman reenactment, if you do Crusade reenactment, if you do medieval reenacting in general, there's a high likelihood that you're going to come across individuals who value that hobby for completely different reasons than you do. We can't grow if we're scaring off people who are concerned about whether or not they're getting into the wrong type of medieval reenactment group. I mean, when I meet new people in the reenactment community, I'm looking at their garb, I'm looking at their jewelry, I'm looking for tattoos, I'm looking for any coded language in the organizations that they're involved with or with themselves that may tell me I'm not safe with them. And other LGBTQ people are doing the same thing. People of color have to do the same thing. It's how we have to live our life, or we risk harm. And as I transitioned to a female presenting person and I kind of decided it was time to pick a new character to play, I chose a Viking woman. You know, that's another one of those cultures that particular group of people thinks it speaks to their viewpoint of the world. I don't see it that way. And I jumped into Viking reenacting as a female right when we were like having this whole conversation about whether or not they were female combatants in Viking raids. Now, I tend to use the terms Viking and Norse interchangeably. I understand that the historiography of those terms is that they have very divergent meanings, but the reality is in how those words are used today, the average person doesn't see those differences. And this isn't an academic conversation I'm having, so I'm not going to stress out about it right now. Just for all intents and purposes, just understand I'm kind of using the two terms somewhat interchangeably in this conversation. I chose to represent my character in very queer ways. Like, I took the modern symbol of the rainbow flag and incorporated it into my garb. And that was a political choice. I want people to know what I stand for, what I represent. And when people choose other modern symbology, it's a choice. I think more often than not, it's probably a choice. And if it wasn't a choice, I think it would be open to conversation about it when someone points it out to you. When I make a piece of jewelry and I put rainbow beads next to a Thor's hammer, like, I'm making a statement about who I am as a reenactor, making a statement about where my art fits into the modern world, and how I see the past, through what lens I'm interpreting things. It is a choice. Now, it takes a lot of time and energy to go and make a piece of jewelry. I don't by accident make any of my reproduction pieces. I don't by accident make any of my themed jewelry. It didn't just happen. I made a choice. I had a vision most of the time when I start, and if not, I had a vision very quickly into doing it. Now, you've got to understand that in the 1900s, and to some extent in the late 1800s, there were attempts made by individuals to stamp nationalistic ideology onto history, onto medieval history. And that continued into the Nazi era and informed Nazi propaganda. And they made a lot of stuff that looks Viking that is not. And that stuff, it makes its way into the reenacting community, either intentionally or unintentionally. When that stuff is present in the community, it endangers the community's ability to grow. And we as a populace and individuals who have standing in the community, they need to be on guard for that stuff. They need to learn about those symbols and recognize the coding and be able to deal with it effectively and quickly. So I, as an artist, No, I am treading on territory that overlays territory occupied by these nationalists. Okay, I'm just counting back. 1, 2, 3, 3. Okay. I know that. So I make choices. I make sure that there is imagery on my shop, the online or at the physical location, that kind of tells those people, like, this isn't the store you think it is. Don't come in here looking for your black sun regalia. And also tells people who are in communities that have concerns, be like, I'm a safe place. You know, I love Thor's hammer. It has meaning to me. I don't want to see it go the way of other symbols. Like, I used to be a crusader. I don't know that I feel as comfortable being a crusader now with this resurgence of white nationalism and the association the Crusades have with certain white nationalist organizations in the South. So, like, you will often find I pair Thor's hammers with rainbow pride stuff a lot. I do that on purpose. I've got a Viking shield with a giant rainbow pride flag on it. I do that on purpose. My big banner, it's got rainbows on it. I do that on purpose. In my organization, the blue feather is a symbol of LGBTQ community. I make sure that that's out and visible. I have been told by people that when they saw my setup at their first event, they realized that it was a safe place for them to be. And there was a time in my particular community, when I first started, the blue feather wasn't like a symbol of open pride, it was a covert symbol. A way of finding each other in an environment that was less friendly towards us. I'm so glad that that has changed. I want to keep it that way. I make choices with my art that conveys my own lens that I view this history through. I made a choice to go with a Viking persona, not just because I make glass beads, but because I find some value in certain aspects of Viking society. And it's not a perfect society for LGBTQ people in the past. It's not a perfect society for women in the past. But there's some aspects of it that I choose to elevate that I appreciate. The concept of the possibility of female combat, presence of gender-bent gods, the ability to wear hair openly. I appreciate that with Viking persona, I don't have to worry about the historical accuracy of having my hair down as a single woman. Anyways, politics is in all of this that we do. It's in every decision we make that touches on gender, sex, sexuality, nationalism, racial identity. There's all of that. It's a position of privilege to be able to think that politics isn't going to almost every choice you make. I just want the world to have the position of we're going to make political choices that convey a sense of welcoming to people. That's that. Maybe in all that ranting I can find something to puzzle together for a statement. Maybe I gotta throw it all away. Let's talk about something else. I think I need to make one more red bead. So I'm gonna make 2 more mandrels full of red beads, and I'm gonna move on to a different color. Anyways, I guess my point that I was trying to get to is that I just try to make choices that make my reenactment community a safer place for people who not always feel safe in this world. I don't know how much work I'm going to get done today. It is really cold. I'm trying really hard to get all the meats needed to finish up this. And I'm going to concentrate on some awesome meat so I can finish up another piece. Ooh, that piece. What do I need? I need wood. We need to make one of those reds. I'll go back and adjust that. I need one set of white. So we can knock off that white meat and we'll make that red. So let's talk about the state of the business. So I'm trying to do one video a week that is just like shop time, which is what this is. Anyways, I've been trying to finish up my video production of my trip to the MDATS conference, Medieval Dress and Textile Society conference that I did not this November, but the one before. And then the last video is in production right now. I won't finalize that video until the Friday it gets released. If you would like to get credit in that video as a backer for the project, then you're still able to do that. So the fundraiser is still up, and I'll go through one more time how that fundraiser works. Okay, so for any donation on the GoFundMe, you will get mentioned on the blog, and as long as you do the donation before I finalize the video, I think it's November the 27th, you will get in the credits for the video blog. If you happen to donate $10 or more, you will get a coupon code. If you donate $20, you will get beads. If you donate $30, you'll get a selection from my Gorilla Glass inventory. That could be bell pins, a vial, or a ring. 100 gets you custom jewelry. 200 gets you custom feast gear. 500 gets you shop time. Come hang out with me. But like I said, you only need to donate whatever the GoFundMe will let you, which I think is $1, and you will get the reward. So if I can raise $1,000, I'm 120 away from $1,000. If we get to $1,000, we will have paid for the plane ticket. If I can get 2,000, that'll pretty much cover all of my lodging for the trip. If you enjoyed the video blog, please comment on them, like them, subscribe to my YouTube channel, watch them all the way through. That helps a lot. I'm at 171 subscribers. I really would like to get to 500. You can also support the business by going to my webpage and donating on the blog. And I don't want to charge for access to the blog. I just ask that if you find value in it, that you can occasionally drop a donation by. I'm just trying to get money to keep the business afloat. The struggle this year has been huge. Income has just evaporated almost since the orange man took power. This has been a horrendous economic year for business. When I went on the trip to England, and it was an opportunity that I couldn't say no to. I tried to squeeze everything I could into that trip. I also hoped that when I came home, I would have built connections in Europe that would expand my sales. That didn't pan out. I have not picked up any sales that I can directly associate with that trip. I haven't picked up any international sales since the election at all. I gambled on that trip and it did not pan out the way I would like it to. I'm not sad I took the trip. I had a great time. It has financially had an impact. That's just everything. for like since I moved down to the old shop, it's been a struggle to get established here. I'm finally in this like mood if I want to get work done, and the weather conspires against me. Like it's uncomfortable working in the shop right now, even though like my headspace is there and I'm ready to get some production done. It's cold. And this shop is not properly heated at the moment, and I can't afford to take care of those problems. And even if I could, that's not where I feel like my money needs to go right now. I'm literally like trying to pay for everything in the business with money that I have on hand. This is going to be a hard video to edit. It's a hard video to do. Every choice comes with anxiety. I blew through a propane tank today. That just needs to be replaced. That's $20 that I have to fret about spending. I'm literally in a situation where, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to focus on my business? Am I supposed to be fleeing for my life? What the hell am I supposed to be doing right now? I've given so much to this art, and I'm literally struggling to keep the business afloat. And I'm scared to spend any money on it because I literally feel like I need all the cash reserves I do have in the event I have to leave. I just want you to know that every ounce of support I get matters. That every purchase, donation, and contribution, taking a portion of that money when I can and then setting it aside for that eventuality when they come. That it is helping to pay for my life. It helps recoup the cost of car repairs. Not borrowing money to keep the business afloat. I am trying to find joy in my art. We're locking up journalists for free speech. Not accidentally getting round up, they're getting targeted. We are literally carrying out summary executions of people in the streets of Minneapolis. And I'm stressing about my business. I'm also afraid for my life. It's been a minute since we've made any like direct attack on LGBTQ people or trans people in any substantial way. And part of me feels like that's because they're getting traction, they're getting value from what's happening elsewhere. But when they need a distraction, when they need a news soundbite, don't think they're not coming for us again. I have been harassed more since the election than I was in the preceding 10 years. And that's not an exaggeration. There may come a time when, friends, you are needed to help extricate people like me. Anyways, I said I was going to make some more beats and focus on that for a minute, so let's do that.